Hello and welcome to this episode of the Lake Effect podcast. We're shooting in downtown Barrie at the Sandbox Center. I'm here this morning with Madison Taylor. We're going to focus on fine home building and cottage building in the Muskoka and Barrie area. So welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, so we'll jump right into it. So tell us about your company, what the history of the company is, and what kind of projects you handle and what you do.
Awesome. So we are Madison Taylor. We are a full integrated design firm, so offering everything from architecture, master planning, landscape architecture, interior design, interior furnishings, and build management as well. So we've been in business for about 14 years and do an array of projects. We do everything from small renovations all the way up to full complex properties, whether it be waterfront or estate, where we're really managing, the entire scope.
So you must have a lot, like you don't do it on your own. You must have a team of people.
Yeah.
And so when a customer comes in and they want you to design, like let's take a cottage as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's actually have a look at a couple cottages that you might have done in the past. So where does your scope beginning and end? So I imagine people come in, they have a concept, an idea. I mean, these days people are probably flooding your inbox with Pinterest pictures.
Absolutely.
Right? That's how it usually starts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's really interesting. So when a client first comes to us, we do an initial interview really to understand like what are their goals in terms of scope of work, timelines, budget, where are they at in the actual process, so that we can really kind of understand, where we will best fit, within their equation. And so once we do that, we start to understand, okay, do we need master planning? Do we need architecture? Do we need landscape? And then we essentially formulate a proposal that will allow us to meet kind of all of the elements that they need from us, within that.
Do you work with their architect, or do you have an architect, or you refer them to an architect? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have a team of 40 people, just under 40 people. So we are a team, and within our team, we have architectural designers, landscape architects, interior designers, furniture designers, and then our construction team is project manager, site supervisors, carpenters, and laborers. So we really do in-house have the ability to take someone from A to Z. Now, in saying that, not all projects are ready for us to take A to Z. They might already have architectural plans because they've gone down that path already, and maybe they just need us for interior design. So that's where we can really kind of understand. I mean, we love the full service because to me, the way we do our process is the most efficient and most functional, but it's not always the case. So we're happy to kind of meet what clients need.
So somebody can walk in and they can, sort of a la carte, like pick off the menu, the components that they want to get you involved in.
Exactly.
You can price that out. You assign the resources as needed. Or if somebody really walked in and they don't have, they're not connected to a professional and they just have maybe a lot or a real estate agent that's, put a deposit down or something and say, okay, we want to take this lot and we want to turn it into a waterfront cottage with these specifications. Help us walk through the design process.
Exactly.
Do you ever follow it through right to the end, occupancy permit?
Everything.
The keys?
Yeah, absolutely. So our company manages about 2 to 3 full custom builds per year, where we are taking it from architectural pre-planning, master planning, all the way through to construction management, right to the finish line with furniture, where we're actually placing and staging and bringing our clients to the point where it's like, just show up with your suitcase and you are ready to go. And they're with us for the entire journey, right from the get-go.
Okay. So I myself have been through the process a few times, built a few cottages, and my brother just accomplished a really nice one actually in Kawarthas.
Yeah, nice.
I'm finding that there's like people maybe try to save expenses or, kind of beat the system.
Right.
And what I find is the best way to beat the system is actually to have the same people and have a connected idea from beginning to end. You must have to explain that to people over and over again.
Totally. And it's really interesting that you say that because, the industry historically, to me, works in a way that doesn't make sense. So, historically, people will hire an architect and they'll say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And they'll take their expertise and develop what they feel is the solution to that problem and then hand it over. Then they go to hire an interior designer. The interior designer looks at the plans and goes, that's not the best solution. I have the best solution. And then they're like, you need to get your architect to change this. And we don't agree with this. And they haven't thought about that. Now the client's going back to the architect saying, hey, you didn't think about this. Can you update these plans? And then, and there's like this huge mashup.
Like too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's so inefficient. And at the end of the day, not only are you losing time going through it like that, but you're losing money because someone like that client's probably paying for all of those revisions back and forth in order to get through that process. Where for us, I mean, we can work the traditional way because we realize sometimes that's just how the industry is. But, where we're the most passionate is in this integrated design. And it's because
So don't stray from that word for just a second or two. Passion. Like, I know that you have to have a passion of some kind to do this kind of work.
Totally.
Where does your passion come from to, like, how did you get into this, and why do you choose to do this?
So it's funny. Like, I grew up in a creative family. My father was a musician. My sister was in the arts. My mom was in holistic medicine. So just like a very kind of creative family. So I naturally just had that side to me. I always wanted to be a designer. Even in elementary school, like math and art and drafting were always my favorite. I did co-ops as young as 14 in the design industry.
I'm going to bet that if we went into your like treasure trunk or whatever you call it, we'd find lots of doodles.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like just doodles, but it was the organization of things. My mom was like, your room was always perfect. You always had your outfits laid out. So it was like a visual organization thing more than like a painter, let's say. I loved things to like make sense, and they had to balance and all that kind of stuff. So it was very like almost mathematical in a sense.
Yeah, there's always that balance between the physical realities of a structure that needs to be exposed to 4 seasons,
right,
and some picture somewhere of what you want it to look like on the one bright sunny day where the sun is coming from that angle,
right,
and and it looks like that designer's expression.
Yeah.
You're obviously familiar with Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
I had a boss who was very inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright, and Frank Lloyd Wright's stuff that he was inspired by is from a desert.
Yeah.
And we're not in a desert.
Right.
And with big overhangs and squares and things, like snow does not like to sit on a flat surface without damaging something.
Right. Yeah.
So I get that balance. I'm sure you have to explain that to your customers from time to time.
Totally.
But people are smarter than they used to be because they're exposed to more information. So they must come in with some of their own ideas.
100%. And it's really our job to help them funnel that, right? Because Pinterest it can be overwhelming. It can be inspiring, but it can also be overwhelming. And it might be showing them visually something that speaks to them, but we have to have the professionalism and like the expertise to say, that's beautiful. It's in the desert or it's in Costa Rica. We can't achieve it that way, but let's try it this way so that
inspired by it.
Yeah, it can drive your vision, but it might not be the exact same thing just because we live in Canada with lots of snow.
Okay, so on the screen here, Kale, if you want to jump to it with us on and off here, we'll look at some of the final expression of the work that you do.
For sure.
Okay, so walk us through it. You're driving. You got the mouse there.
Awesome. So I guess one thing I want to highlight before I kind of go through the photos is that when we're working for a client, like we're very client centric. These designs are not for us. We're not paying for them. We're not living in them. They're not meant to be for us. So it's our job to really understand who are our clients, how do they live, what gets them excited about design and style, and then how do we facilitate giving that to them. We want them to basically have a reflection of themselves when the house is done. So
I did a concrete pad behind my house, and the concrete guy was doing the final finishing, and my kids were there. They were young at the time, maybe 5 and 7. And my son and my daughter wanted to scratch their names into the concrete. And I looked at the concrete guy and said, do you mind if we scratch, if they scratch your name? And he looks at me, he's like, it's your concrete.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And and that's just it. Like, this is their house. So, I mean, and again, in our industry, unfortunately, I think a lot of designers design their art, which is fine. They design the style that they prefer, and that's all they do all day long. And that speaks to some people. So that is just fine. But for us, it's like, this isn't our house. So like, how do we make sure we're reflecting you? How do we make sure functionality is speaking to you, and that this house is going to live and breathe with you when you go to move into it, and it just feels good. When you drive home, it looks good to you. So you're going to see in our website, it's really random in terms of design style. And it's really because this is our clients. Like, this is who the people that we're working for. So you've got, kind of this more Mediterranean style. You've got transitional kind of contemporary farmhouse. Then you've got your more traditional, Muskoka cottage. So there's just like a huge variety. And again, this is us working for our clients. This is us trying to find, like, This one here we're about to build this spring.
Okay,
And it's-
pick one and let's drill into it.
You know, like this is so different from most things we've ever done. And it's because our client, you know, coming from New York, they wanted something traditional.
So there's definitely, you can see the East Coast flair, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like Martha's Vineyard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
So
were like Cape Cod, Hamptons, Martha's Vineyard, like all of those things sort of spoke to them. And so we wanted to create something that they felt really good in here up in Canada.
yeah, those
And-
design elements, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert. I'm just the amateur, right? So you have mutton bars and you have windows at the top with lots of, you know, a geometric squares, usually with some kind of balance on the top.
Yeah.
Okay, you have that curve in the roof.
Yeah.
So you have that curve down in the roof at the bottom here. And the funny thing is that could be interpreted if you really stretch this out like a Japanese design almost, right? But not when you do it this way and you've got it squared off on the edges. And then, of course, the one thing that always sort of hammers home to the Cape Coddish, you know, northeastern look is using some form of shingle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
those little round peephole windows and things like that. So
yeah, there's some great stuff. I don't know if you've ever like these ones you're talking, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's some great stuff
Character.
in the Thousand Islands, near Kingston, where you're going. Like if you're on a boat, you're going down the St. Lawrence River. You see stuff that's built, like by people from Boston and New York. You know, came out there, and they brought their styles with them.
Right.
And you see some of the older places. They have lots of round shapes on the top.
Yeah.
Contained within, you know, square shapes or triangles and boxes, efficient shapes for shedding snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something else that's really interesting about this project is, and this kind of speaks more to our process in the ideal world, is they were coming from New York. They had received our name from a couple different people. I was able to meet them on the property that they were looking at purchasing. So this is where we recommend people reach out. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't even have my property yet, or I'm too early. Like literally you're never too early. So the beauty of what happened here was they had not bought this property yet. They reached out to us. We asked them what their goals were, what were they wanting to build, size, you know, complexity, etc. And then we were able to successfully do a full pre-planning report that basically solidified, yes, because this was a smaller property and it had major restrictions. So we wanted to make sure, will this even fit? Like, are we going to have to make concessions? We don't want you to make concessions. So let's make sure it fits. So we did a bit of work in the forefront before making that purchase so that they felt confident that we're going to get exactly what we want. And now we can buy this property with confidence, knowing that we're going to get this to the finish line. And we were able to sort of eliminate those fears and that pre-planning phase earlier on in the process. So sometimes people will contact us while they're searching for property and they'll say, hey, can you, this is what we want. Can you check this property for us? And then we check it and we go, hey, hang on. This says like major EP or major setbacks or major restrictions, and then they might not buy it. And that's okay.
So the earlier the client commits to you and sort of has trust in your organization and the people that are working there, and that you're going to work through the issues, the better off it is for them, because they're more likely to have to like settle for something or
exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't make people commit to us for a full package at that point, because that's overwhelming for anyone. Like, hey, hire us, but you don't even have a lot yet. So all we're saying is we do our pre-planning report. It takes a day or two. It's a couple $1,000s. And if you don't ever hire us after that, like, we just want to know that we've provided value in that process for you.
I think that level of, casual commitment, just you get a chance to audition a little bit for the client. Yeah, that's really good process, I think.
Yeah, and we want people to feel good with us. We don't want them to feel like we've forced this like cumbersome package on them, So even when we provide a full quote for, architecture, interior, landscape, etc., if you're not quite feeling 100% yet, let's just start step one. Let's go through pre-planning and architecture. And after that, hopefully you feel really good and you've loved the process. Then you just keep going. Like, hey, let's move into interiors. Let's move into, all those other elements. And then you're really like buying with confidence, I guess you can say. And we've developed such a great relationship at that point that it's so easy. It's so easy for everyone. It's easy for us too.
Okay, so let's see some other results of those relationships.
So this one,
I mean, some of this stuff is really
this one's really cool.
Unique. Yeah.
Our client came to us. This is an estate property in King City, and she had a big vision, and she wanted these kind of like modern estate elements that were kind of mixing together farmhouse, but like big glass, like big glass. So This one's really cool. I mean, we're at the framing window stage right now of this project, and like just how big this great room and glass is, it's so impressive. And this was like a very big point for our client, was like how big this glass was and how much natural light she was going to have flooding through this house. So there's some really neat elements. And because we're collaborating landscape architecture.
Is that Rayner's?
I think they did use Rayner's actually on this
very,
one.
very well known. I think it's from Belgium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
great stuff.
I believe they have used Rayner's on this one. So something else to kind of point out in this visual is that, again, when you segment architecture, maybe that person's not necessarily thinking about how the land is going to be used. Where we like to flip everything on its head a little bit. So it's like, okay, you have a property. How do you want to use the whole property? Not just the house. How do you want to use the whole property? Do you want a roundabout driveway? Do you want a pool? Do you want a cabana? Do you want, trees and privacy? Like there's just so much to think about from a master planning standpoint. So we kind of start from like a really high level conversation of like, what's the overall goals of the whole property? And because we have landscape architecture and architecture, we can have those conversations and really think about the total use so that when we're organizing the site, we're thinking about all those things. Because a lot of people just plunk a house on a lot and then go, oh, you wanted a pool? Oh, sorry. Like there's not enough room there.
I think that's kind of where the mistake or the improper development of McMansions came from. Is some of them are beautiful designs and they're excellent. But the thing is if you have a 5-gallon pail of diamonds and you throw a diamond into it, what are you going to see? Right. So the landscape and the surroundings and the framing of the building, like, you want to see something that's nice, but what's around it does matter.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just the functionality of it, right? Like when our clients move in and start really using their property, we want them to be like, oh my God, this is so useful. Like we're using every square inch of our property. We have all the sight lines that we were excited for. And, so we're really, and because,
Does anybody use the term feng shui anymore? Is that?
A lot of people do actually. Yeah. Dean in our office, loves the whole feng shui world. And I think there's a specialty to it. So I don't want to sell that we're specialists at it, but Dean has a strong passion for feng shui for sure.
I think feng shui is kind of like a universal term. I mean, it is a specific design philosophy.
Yeah.
But some people say it and they don't really mean feng shui. They just mean make this work. So when you exit the door, just, you're not going to fall off a cliff. Or when you put a window somewhere, you want the sun to come through that window at some point during the day, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, so the connection and again, to me, you need the right subject matter expert for each of these phases. So a lot of people will say, hey, we do architecture and interior design and the architect does the interior design. And that's fine. I mean, visually, they might be very skilled. But I know, I went to school for architectural technology for 3 years. I also went to school for interior design for 3 years. It's a very different training program. And the experiences that you get with those, with that training is also very different. So we've really focused on finding specialty people within each of those fields to make sure that when a client's coming to us and they're working on architecture, it's someone who very much specializes in architecture. When they're getting a landscape design, it's someone who specializes in landscape architecture. When we are doing interior design, we even split interior and furniture because to me, those are two very different specialty worlds. Working with fabrics and upholstery versus working with tile and kitchen design, very different. So we've really done it's really been important for me when we're curating our team that if we're looking for an interior designer, that's their specialty. They know the function of that inside of that home. If we're looking for a furniture designer, they specialize in drapery, they specialize in fabrics and, the flow of that furniture. So
I can be an employer with many employees and knowing that everybody is responsible for their component of the work. And they also have to be flexible and cover for each other. People get sick and they leave and new people come and need to be trained. It must, to have that many people, it must have been an effort on your part. I mean, the hundreds, if not thousands of people that you need to interview to get 40 good people that are
so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. And you know what? As the company has been evolving, they got to grow with the company too. I mean, the scope of work keeps changing on us. We started from small bathroom and kitchen renovations and now we're up to, one of our projects right now is 15,000 square feet estate complex property in Hockley Valley. And then there's, 8,000 square feet in Muskoka complex property in the sense that we're dealing with waterfront. So
I've been out of the game for a while, but that's switching you from part 9 to part 4.
part 3.
Part 3.
Okay. A little bit of both. So basically part 9 is going to still follow for a lot of your construction. And then part 3 comes into play with some of the bigger ones for health and safety, fire. So it's all about fire rated walls and like making sure that that size of building is safe.
I remember the first time I saw a building like that where when the structure was going up, it was a house. It belonged to 2 doctors.
Yeah.
It was out in the country. Things were a little cheaper. This was about 8 years ago. So things were a little less expensive than they are right now. But it was basically a commercial building. The structure, the outside structure was a commercial building. So the challenge was trying to clad things and cover things. Yeah. And there's lots of pictures that we've gone through. I went with one of our other guests one time. That balance of using commercial-ish or commercial-grade materials, but making them suitable for or complemented in a way that they're suitable for a residential environment. Yeah.
Totally. Actually, I'll flip to this is another build that we are managing actually right now. Somewhere in here. Here we go. So speaking to exactly what you're talking about. So this one is actually you can see a little video here, just kind of neat.
It's amazing because if you were looking at that exact same thing that you're showing us here, say 30 years ago or 35 years ago, it would probably be a golf course.
Right.
Not a house, not somebody's house.
And I mean, So our client came to us. They have a collection of mini horses and they wanted to build a new farm. And honestly, they're like the most lovely, lovely people. And so this was an interesting one because to just tackle this in a segment of like, I need architecture, like you can't. I mean, the complexity of the collaboration of spaces on this property were so critical for the mini horses and where does the barn go and where do the paddocks go? And then even in the landscape design, you can kind of see this like outline here. This is called a ha-ha wall. And so what's really cool about it is that...
What is that?
Yeah, so it's basically so that the horses play in their paddock and they can actually walk up to their patio, but the patio is raised so that they can pet the horses, but the horses can't get on the patio. So it's really neat because it allows for this interaction with their animals that, I mean, if we just plunk the house down and put a fence up, you're walking out to them, right? So really, really cool integration here for functionality for sure, but then making all of this look really good. Like this is a lot of building. You've got 12,000 square feet of home. You've got 13,000 square feet of barn. How do you make this look cozy, right? And approachable. And I don't know if I have any other ones. Yeah. So there's like kind of the approach coming through the courtyard. They also wanted a 360 storm tower. They live in a really cool area where they can see the city when it's nice out. So being able to sit up here, and what's cool is it kind of wraps around a stair opening. When you look down, it's a bar. So it's just such a neat environment where they can sit, they can have a coffee, they can have a scotch, whatever they prefer, and, be able to like really see 360 either views or storms. So
that's pretty cool.
Being able to work, as an entire team on this was so cool. And even having the construction element, again, very complex construction project. Our team is managing this one. Like master planning, Zach, our landscape architect, working with Dean and Greg on the actual design of the home, so important because there's so much connection to those two spaces. And then having Melissa, one of our interior designers, working with Greg on...
Was this owned by a couple?
This is a couple, yeah.
And I guess they agree on their passion being miniature horses?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's like happy wife, happy life. It's for sure her passion, but he's very supportive, and I think that it was.
I'm still kind of working on that, trying to talk my wife into an airstrip.
Right.
She won't sure.
You know what my husband talked me into? I have 2 motorcycles sitting in my living room.
In your living room.
In our living room, and you know what? It's so cool because people come in and they're like, "Wow," because you just don't expect to see a motorcycle.
You don't mind my asking, what are they?
So one of them is a redneck chopper. It was built by Dave Germain, actually, at Harley and Barrie here. He was a very passionate bike maker.
Yes.
So it's like a 13-foot rake, red. Like I don't know if my husband can honestly even drive it. It's so big, and he's not that tall. And then the Exile Cycle. So I don't know if you know Russell Mitchell. So he was Build or Bust was his TV show. He was a British guy. And he built these really cool motorcycles that were
Cafe racer or something? Or?
It's just like a stripped down raw bike. So like all the wirings through the piping, it's clean. There's no wires anywhere. You have
Is it chopper style still?
like a little bit, yeah, like hardtail, like exposed belt, all hand control. No, sorry, no hand controls. It's all foot control.
Okay.
So it just looks, everything's very clean, very raw, wrapped pipes.
Yeah, there's a movement out there, I guess, of people try, like you would look at a bike and you're like, is there enough parts for this thing to run?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was very much like that. So he built this on his show, and then Rob was in Palm Springs and found it and then had it shipped back quite a few years ago. And I don't know, 12 years ago, 2011, I bought my own bike, and I rode a Harley Sportster 48 and had it redone to look like an old military bike. It was like flat green with a white star.
Like a WLA.
Yeah, it had like the brown spring seat, and it was like really, the white wall tires and stuff. And that was like our thing. We loved it. We biked not very far. We loved like quick little short runs. And then we had kids, and the fear of riding a bike and the distracted driving and how crazy our roads got, I was like, I don't know. So now we dirt bike.
That is.
So I'm not sure that's any safer, but
Do you dirt bike or just snowmobiles on?
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I spend my...
And my kids are like my 7-year-old, when he was about 4, we had him on a 50 with the whatchamacallit, training wheels.
Oh, really?
And then our oldest son, who's 13, he's now on a 200 Honda, I think. Yeah. It's terrifying as a mom, because it's like, I know they're dangerous, but I'm always like, I think it was, oh my gosh, Jordan Peters, who said, do dangerous things carefully.
Yes.
So I liked that. I thought it was a neat saying, and it's like, again, make your kids uncomfortable. They're going to learn and grow. And it's like, but be careful and make them safe.
I had that conversation with my wife last night. My son, we have a dirt bike for him that he's talking about getting his M license.
Yeah.
I've had many, many, many bikes. Yeah. And my daughter now, she's like, oh, I want to ride, I need to ride a bike. And she said to me, I completely agree with you, so does she, is if you don't teach them, they're going to try and teach themselves.
Exactly.
And at least you have an opportunity to maybe, show them some of the errors that you've made so that they don't end up in a really bad situation.
I totally agree. And it's a very hard path to take, because it's like, you just want them to be safe, and you want to put them in this beautiful bubble that like the world never touches them. But I just know, and being through what I've been through, I mean, I've been through some hard things, but I can handle them. And I think because when you do hard things, you get really good at it, and so, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Actually, even rock climbing was something that our family does, rock and ice climbing. And I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I'm so good at it, I'm amazing. I'm not. I'm terrified. But, when Rob took us out, he was very skilled at it. And, we do top roping, so it's not really dangerous, but it's still scary. You're still exposed. You feel very kind of...
Yeah, you can manage risk, but you can never eliminate it.
Totally.
Even if you do nothing but walk around in a sealed box with a helmet on, there's still some risk to it. Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And so rock climbing was really interesting for our family, because I was like, passion for Rob. Yes, I want the boys to learn it. And I pushed myself through it, because I got vertigo and I was very scared of it. But I was like, no, I need my own rules right now. I need to get uncomfortable, and I am, and I'm learning, and I'm getting better. And I also wanted to see my kids like watch me challenged, and still pushing, and still, kind of getting through that thing that I could have been like, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. It's terrifying. So I try, every time we go out, I try to do 1 climb, maybe 2, and then I'm like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to do any more. But I try to like really push through that feeling of uncomfort, because I think it's good for my kids, but I also think it's good for me.
You can't, life is kind of about contrast. If you don't feel discomfort or you don't feel risk, you're never going to feel joy, right?
Exactly.
So, okay, back to, so you have a passion for motorcycles, or your family does.
Yeah.
You're living with a motorcycle in your living room.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so these folks have a passion for miniature horses, and they're living with horses, in plain view, and plan their house around it. And I think there's a bold, somebody who's doing this, it clearly, it's they have the resources, right, to come up with an idea and find somebody who's got enough passion to buy into their idea a little bit.
Yeah.
To turn it into a technical possibility, which you have lots of people that could turn many ideas into a technical possibility. I'm going to guess if you're leading a team of that many people, it's kind of your responsibility to establish where the guardrails are.
100%.
Right? Yeah. With the client, obviously, we'll say, okay, we could stretch that a bit,
Yeah.
And how many different purposes can a building or a property, provide?
Great.
That's one of the talents and one of the differences. I'm going to point this out, and I really hope that if any of your clients are watching this, they get this part from just my humble opinion, okay? And there's, if you get somebody who's from the city and they might have been up to cottages or designed a cottage or two or something like that, they kind of get it, okay? They probably have the technical skills. But if you do cottage after cottage after cottage, and you're seeing that the shoreline and the direction of the wind and the change of the season, it really matters to have that experience to get it right, because you can make something. A lot of people will imagine that one perfect sunny day, sitting at the end of the dock. The dock is exactly the right size, the length for the boats. The steps look great. The stone looks great. The house is the right height. You can accommodate the 23 people is your number, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then if you're not thinking about what's going to happen while that is buried under snow for 6 months, what's going to happen if I want to ride snowmobiles up where, because everything's covered in snow, you're going to wreck all the landscaping, that kind of stuff. I've actually visited a cottage where it thawed and like everything was knocked out. This is not a shot at you, but snowmobilers in general, which I have been one.
Yeah.
Okay. There's snowmobile tracks all over the landscape. Yeah, exactly. Right? So if you're not thinking about that stuff, you don't have the experience.
Yeah.
Just because you can design a house in the city does not necessarily mean you can accommodate or think of everything required on a shoreline, on a side of a hill, or a seasonal property that's going to be abandoned for a time period.
Yeah, and I think that like it's so important to think about the collaboration of it, because I always say like, clients know how they like to live. Like our clients know how they like to live. They know how they use their kitchen. They know, and they have the experience of owning a home and living, right? And so we don't want to not take that information when we're thinking about it. But we've also seen a lot of different homes developed and a lot of different homes designed and a lot of other people's lifestyles and opinions. So we do have like a lot of interesting things that sometimes a client will like say, I absolutely need this. This is how I've always lived. And we're there to educate. So that might be where we go with it. But it's like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. Because to your point, moving from a city home to even, Uxbridge, Caledon, King City, where you're now on property that might have, restrictions, or, doing a cottage in Muskoka versus tiny township versus a chalet in Collingwood, it is like a completely different ballgame for each one of those zones. And so it's our job, again, to take the information and really understand what they're looking for to provide the education so that they can make decisions confidently.
I don't mean to diminish the talent of those people who like design subdivision houses, let's say.
Yeah.
I worked in that business for many years.
Yeah.
And there's a great guy. He's a Matt Brown designer for Madison.
Okay, cool.
And so you have like this postage stamp lot. They used to call them wide lots. They turned the lot sideways, and I can't remember. It was like about 40 by 35 or 40 by 40, something like that. And he had the opportunity to refine, where the doorways are, how many washrooms you're going to have, who's going to access it from what angle, over and over and over, like hundreds of times.
Hey, you're going to get really good at that.
Yeah. He had one house that was only about a 1,400 square foot house above the basement, and it was just like so much more efficient than so many other designs that I had built or experienced. Like, doing subdivision houses. I mean, under my own belt, there's probably 500 houses, 450 houses, something like that.
Yes.
And a lot of them, they just kind of bleed into one, right? Because they all kind of look the same. But there is a talent to it. I don't want to diminish that.
No, for sure. And sometimes that smaller, more restricted, like I was saying, that first house we looked at with the, the skirted roof line, that restriction is sometimes even more challenging because you don't have space to just do whatever you want. You're like, oh gosh, we have to fit a lot of things into this square peg. How do you do it? So I agree with you. Like, I think small property can be very complex, and like working at that over and over and over again, you're going to develop that skill.
Yeah, but
large is just very different. It's a very different set of rules.
Well, it sounds to me, if anybody chose to work with you as a client, like you've kind of got both ends of that spectrum. Like you could see both ends of that spectrum, and I think it's important if somebody's going to accomplish something that's kind of like it was a horse farm, would it be fair to call it a horse farm?
Yeah.
Even though maybe half a horse farm, or if somebody's going to try and accomplish that, to look at both the small spaces and the large spaces and be able to accommodate for both. So I would hope that anybody who's watching this, who watched to this point, would be seriously considering, if they're going to do something like this, to call you, to talk to you. Let's talk about the future a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, you've expressed several times that, you're how much do trends matter in if you're going to build a cottage? My cottage, I have a cottage. It's on Honey Harbor, and one of the buildings is about 80 years old. One was built in 1963, and I think the other one was built maybe around 1930. Okay, just do the math. Whenever you're watching this. So there's certain elements to it that you have to renovate, just for longevity of use, like, things wear out.
Right.
What are your thoughts on trends, the future, building too trendy, not trendy enough, contemporary style, traditional style? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, everything goes through a phase, right? So like you go through your kind of modern burst, and then you go through traditional right after that, because people want the contrast. They get sick of something and then they go next to the most contrasting thing. So we're seeing that right now. There was a period where everything went really modern, a lot of glass, more square.
I'm not complaining about that.
Yeah.
So a lot of glass.
A lot of glass, exactly. And then it's honestly like what we're seeing right now is it's shifting back to traditional. People want the character, they want the warmth, they want the texture. And so what I would say is that, we really try not to go too much after the trends. Like when we get a book of Pinterest photos, which we get very often, we like to use them as a guide and an essence. Like we like to grab the essence of what we're seeing in those pictures, because if we're going too specific with what are in those pictures were already done. So that, if we're just going to repeat that might be a trend that goes really, really quickly. So rather than focusing on the trends, really, again, focusing back on the client. Who are you? What gets you excited? And how do we bring in some newer elements so that you have that feeling of refresh and new, but still, pay homage to the history and like bringing in texture, natural stone, wood. And so what we're seeing a lot of is like a little bit more old architectural style, with big glass.
Everything you've said in the last 30 seconds to a minute, you've like created a checklist of things that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how much time we got before we shut this down, but so Pinterest, let's start with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how many times I've gotten this Pinterest, especially this one right here. Yeah. Okay. And people, and I have to explain to them, what you're looking at is a two-dimensional picture that doesn't have, I know showers reasonably well. I would hope so. I'm a glass company. So I'm just going to use it as an example, okay, that would apply to every component of a house that you design. So you have a much broader scope. Okay, but I'll express it through this. So look at this shower. It's got a grid pattern. It looks great. Okay, I want this look. Okay, so do you want that actual look? Do you actually want to do divided light? Because divided light was designed for industrial spaces,
right,
where you're not showering on one side of it.
Right.
Okay, so how do you accommodate for like soap scum, let's say, running down the side of a divided light? It's going to catch soap scum on every level. Okay, maybe what we can do is we can use just one solid piece of glass, 3 pieces of glass, and put like vinyl or some kind of plastic to create the grid pattern,
right,
or aluminum, okay, right, whatever it is. Okay, it's still going to attract some soap scum. Okay, why don't we just put it on one side?
Yeah. Okay,
well, then you're going to see the glue from behind.
Right.
Okay, well, what if we digitally print the grid pattern on it, coat the glass with, AccuShield or some form of water repellent, and just do the actual structure in the black frame. Okay, great. That takes care of everything.
Right.
What's the cost? $2,000, $2,500 per piece of glass.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, so this is a $10,000 shower.
Right.
Oh, I just want what's the price here from Home Depot? As low as $289.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. This is a full $1,700 versus or call it $2,000 versus $10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, let's just go with this. I'm just going to buy it from Home Depot. Okay, is your tile going to be perfectly 52 by 34 by 72?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
it's just so much to think about, right? And I think that's like our job, your job and our job, right? Is that when people come with an idea, how do we take that idea and then create something that's practical? And by practical, I mean what's the functionality of it? Is it meeting the aesthetic? Is it meeting the budget? And, and is it buildable, right? And so we have again, we have to take those pictures and really kind of extract from them to really understand, how to meet that.
Okay, so that's definitely the point of my mentioning that is to take the from frustration with the customer bringing you images to satisfaction for the customer to walk away with what they want. Like let's bridge that gap here.
Yeah.
So so again, the next point on the checklist is you talked about like personal inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So digging into it, like you're like almost like part house psychologist. Is that
100%. Marriage counselor quite often as well.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew a marriage counselor once who said, people who can afford me don't listen to me, and people who listen to me can't afford me.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
So, but if they're getting it as a side service, or, if you can bridge that gap and say accomplish something so both partners are like happy with the result, that's a gratifying feeling.
Totally.
You're bringing people closer together.
Especially when they have different styles and you can kind of nail something in the middle that they're both happy. Like that's pretty cool too. Because sometimes they come with the same style and you're like, that's easy. Sometimes it's like, holy moly, how do we marry these two? It's like extreme modern with like Nantucket. And we've got to find that happy medium, and we do it, and we work through it, and
well, like what does the front porch have to do with the argument that you had with your father-in-law 4 years ago?
Right.
So you have to like put that together.
Totally.
Okay, so bringing that personal inspiration or drawing out the personal inspiration, I guess, is why people don't design their own places, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is they need some guidance.
Totally.
They need to. It's not just a physical practicality of the image that they're trying to create. Maybe it's to a great degree drawing on the experience that you have because you have so many clients and you have so many people also feeding you ideas that work for you, and you also have the experimentation that you get every time you get to build something. Right. I cannot tell you how much pleasure I get. There's a property, a house that I built in the town of Tobermory, right on the corner downtown. I built it literally my own two hands. Had help from the neighbors, had help from locals. And I can't help every time I drive by that, just like, it's like, I did that. Yeah, no, it's not just that it's like I contributed something that's going to outlive me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And somebody's getting joy out of it. Right?
Totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look in the map here, I mean, there's probably, I mean, how many dots on this map in this room can you like point to? You could probably point to a lot somewhere and say, hey, that's in that picture because,
we put it there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I always say like, for me, success is kind of defined in many layers because I think in the design industry, sometimes success is defined by the portfolio. Like, look at all the great things that we've done. And so it's so much more than that for us. Like we want it to look good. Obviously, we want to create beautiful things for people, but it's also about client experience. I think I grew up in the hospitality industry, so naturally I just like really love experience, and I love thinking of ways that can like improve process and experience for people. So, does it look good? Great. Check mark. Awesome. What was that client's experience going through the entire process? Were they having fun? Was it stressful? Did they get exactly what they were looking for? Like, I want that part to be perfect, as well. And it's like how we work together, how we build that relationship. So that's like another check mark. Was the client experience perfect? But to make that client experience perfect, we also have to have an amazing relationship with the builder if we're not building it. How do we work with that builder to make sure that what we're giving them is then supporting the construction for our client, which then also makes the construction enjoyable for our client. So back to that client experience. And then also, like, was it on time? Was it on budget? Was the final product functionally and aesthetically exactly what they were looking for? So to me, there's just like so much more meat to it. It's not just about, hey, look at our portfolio and we do cool things. Great. That might get people's eye right out of the gate, but it's just so much deeper than that. And to me, I would rather, I was with a group of people in our design industry, and a lot of them spoke to their portfolio and how important that was. And I had a hard time resonating with that because it was like, yes, I want it to look good, but if that client isn't happy in the end, but the product looks really great, like I can't rest with that client not being happy. To me, that is so much more important for success. And so it's easy to just do something great and push it out. But if you're not getting that feedback at the end that's positive, I mean, what was the point? And that's just for me. That's not to say that that's correct. It's just that personally for me is so critical.
I think somebody would have a hard time watching this and think that you're being disingenuous. Right. It would be hard for somebody to do it. Like I think what you're saying is, Like, you're not just in it for you.
No, gosh, no.
Yeah.
Ego's at the door. I mean, my whole team knows, like, if we even get like a sniff of ego in our interviews, like hiring new team, I'm like, ugh, out you go. Like, there's just no space for it. I mean, to me, ego is just, I don't know. It's like, I just want vulnerability. I want people to be open. I want people to, if you make a mistake, it's okay. Share the mistake. We all learn from it. So it's like, the ego to me is such a restrictor on doing a good job.
I can just, I can see why you work well with Michael Cadenhead.
I love Michael.
Yeah.
I love Michael.
Because
His
attitude's like, he's like, in the end, it's like, I'm here to help you.
Totally.
I don't have to shower in the shower.
Right.
I need you to get into the shower and be satisfied with it.
Happy.
So, yeah. Same thing with the house. The person needs to walk up to it and say, oh, I contributed to the process, but I had help along the way, and I got what I wanted out of it. And it didn't turn into the designer's dream. It turned into my dream.
Totally.
Yeah, you want that out of a customer.
For sure. And Michael acts the same way in hockey. My husband says the same thing. He's very passionate about everyone having a good time. And, I think when you're that way as a human in one space, you're that way as a human everywhere. And so to try to collect our team and pull them together and curate good people.
I've never played hockey with him, but I imagine if I was right in front of the net, he would pass me the puck.
He'd pass it to you.
Yeah.
Totally pass it to you. He doesn't care if he gets the goal. He's just happy that his team gets the goal, right? So, and that's how our team works. I mean, our team is, like everyone's like, oh, you do such beautiful designs. I'm like, I didn't do them. My team, like, this is our team. And I'm not afraid to say that, right? And everyone in our office is the same way. It's like, oh, well, I worked with Greg. He did it. Or I worked with Dean, or so everyone's like so supportive of each other. And, when you take the ego out, to me, there's just so much more productivity. Like, you're just going to get to the finish line faster because you're removing this like weird piece that just has no place.
I think some people survive that way. They're able to, lead through ego and demand, and they're doing it. It's a strategy, but it's kind of like how some people lead out of, through fear.
Yeah. And
some people try to lead out of wisdom, and both have their consequences.
Totally.
Right. You just have to know when to apply what and where.
Yeah.
If people, you have to be confident in your designs too. I'm sure the homeowners sometimes lean on you to say, tell me what I need to do here.
Yeah.
That from time to time, just because you have experience, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go back real quick to the website here. To wrap here, we really appreciate you being on the podcast. Trying to support Barrie and Muskoka businesses, which you're located in Midhurst, right?
Yeah.
On the screen right now, we have some of the folks on your team, including yourself.
Exactly. So this is our business management team up top here. So whenever you call our office, this is Becky. Becky is like a sunshine ray that comes through the phone. She's our client concierge. And so
excellent.
When people call the office, this is who you get. And
spoke to her yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's just a lovely, she loves talking to people. She loves learning about, when our trades call, when our clients call, she can just, sponge.
Just so everybody, like you have contact, Accurate Glass through Michael Cadenhead. You and I have never met till today.
Yeah.
And all of the scheduling was done through Becky. And I was kind of wondering, and sure enough, the clock struck 10:30. There you were.
Yeah.
So obviously communication, timing, and everything is very important to you.
It's huge. Yeah. It's like I know to hire my weaknesses, sell my strengths. Is that what it is? Yeah. So all of these people really are what, holds the glue. It keeps us together. And so we've got Dana in accounting. Lindsay's my operations manager. So her and I are very much left, right, kind of running and operating the business. And then our social media crew here, Amber and Connor, so videography, photography, graphics, and then all of our design team here. So lots of experience. I mean, we've got Linda, who I'm going to call out just because she's like my third employee. She's been with me for, I think, 11 years and runs our architectural team. So just really, really neat to have a couple of these people beside me that have really been with me for a long time. Actually, another one, not to skip past the other team members because they're all important.
Yeah, well, don't show too many cards here because,
right.
You want to talk to the clients first, get them through the door, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Melissa's a neat one just because literally started at my dining room table. So she, when I was working for myself, just, sole entrepreneur, and I actually mentored Melissa in college because she needed someone to help her through her thesis and program. And I was at that point where I was so stretched working by myself, and my husband's like, just hire someone. And it just felt so foreign to me to think about that because I was like, what do you mean hire someone? I've never done this before. But he had. So he was very supportive in pushing me into out of my comfort zone, I guess you could say. And I knew Melissa.
Given the number of people there, you're well outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really neat because Melissa and I already had a connection. I had been mentoring her. I saw she was a great student. I saw she was really creative. So I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. I'm going to hire Melissa. So that's what I did. I hired Melissa. We worked at my dining room table probably for only about 6 months. And then we moved into an office together where we grew.
Must have been a turning point for you to know that you had the skill to identify people that could satisfy the customers, that had, like, you'd have to have interview skills and managerial skills.
Totally.
If you got somebody in the first shot and they're still with you, I mean, that's really very lucky.
And actually an interesting thing.
Actually, not lucky. It's really, expresses some talent to identify people. So when you're assigning, that's important, I think, for homeowners and customers. Like, I've been through the process myself, right, on the receiving end. Is it like we just want Madison. Nobody, you got 40 people, that's nice. I just want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. And I experienced that too, in the aviation side of things in my previous life, where you have to convince somebody that, hey, I've identified people who can do what I do and do it even better than me. Yeah.
Definitely better.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of neat because people don't really expect me to be there. Like, they understand that when they come on board, it's like, yeah, we're really excited to work with Dean, or we're really excited to work with Melissa. So it's really cool because I don't know if it's the way we've marketed or just the way we've done things. People really understand that that's the system, and they're quite happy with it. They don't.
I think that's kind of.
I'm involved. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like, here you go, you're in the door and see you later. Like, I'm very involved. I do sit in on a lot of client meetings. I do sit in on a lot of collaboration. But they know that the train keeps moving when I'm not there. Like, they've got the team that's essentially pushing this project forward and putting their best skill set forward, whether I'm there or not.
It's a hallmark in a lot of businesses that require talent, that you can draw a connection. Like, you get successful like band or something, and there's always like a producer behind it to keep all these egos in check, or all these talents in check, or keep everybody in line and keep them doing what it is that they do well. Or sports teams, where you can have people making literally tens of millions of dollars, with, when they're out, not on the rink or they're not in the court. Their egos are massive, but you have to bring all this together, and then somebody's got to coach them and lead them down to sort of the championship type of win.
Totally.
And that only happens if the person who's in control could see directly identify their productivity and their talent, not just the name and everything that's attached to it.
Totally. And this has honestly ended up being my favorite part. Like, I love people. I love connection. I love understanding communication and all that kind of stuff. And so, being able to have a team that I can really, really trust has been great, because I do get to work more on the business as opposed to in it, so I can see things from a very different lens that if I was in it and on the projects, I might miss it. So I think it's really important as a business owner, and I'm sure you experience this too, is being able to pull yourself out of the equation. That's just where cool stuff happens. I mean, you can really kind of see things and go, hey, this is really cool and this works really well, but what if we tried this? It might be even better, and so you can't see that when you're in it. Right?
Sometimes the people I work with like my experimentation. Yeah. Sometimes it's painful to go through the experimentation, right? Because it's something you've never done before, or sometimes the result can be, again, I draw a lot of my aviation experience. Some of the most successful airplanes that fly today, the first version or a couple versions crashed. Sometimes they even killed people.
Right.
And you're like, why did they carry on?
Yeah.
Because they saw that, like, eventually, if you try not to make the same mistakes twice, right, and eventually you'll come to a result. Now, if and you'll just decide, like, is this a good idea? Should we keep proceeding with this, or maybe this is not a good idea because you cannot get rid of all the errors, right?
Right. Yeah.
When you start to see the errors disappear, you realize eventually there'll be a result out of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is like disrupt and innovate. Because it's like, if you just get complacent and you do the same thing all the time, I mean, you're going to age out, or better things are going to come along and you're not going to see them, right? So it's having that ability to know, not too aggressively, but to know when things need to change and when things need to shift, so that you can remain relevant and you can remain, edgy, and have kind of the new, AI is the biggest thing that we're seeing right now. For example, it's like, I could turn my head the other way and go, I'm not dealing with that. But it's like a reality that's hitting our industry pretty heavily. So it's like, I need to pay attention to that. I don't, not necessarily to say jump all over it, but like, let's pay attention to it. Let's see it develop. Let's see what's coming through it, and is there stuff that we should be bringing into our business or not, and it's just, again, having that lens and having that ability to look back and watch it.
I agree, and it matters. And yes, you need to pay attention to watch the changes. You also have to recognize that in the end, these are all like, it's either a human creation or it's nature's creation. It's always one or the other. Even us sitting here right now, we have microphones and videos and computers that we would be just standing on a soapbox in front of people, right? It's still the same activity.
Yeah.
Right. So that you're always going to need somebody to direct it's AI doesn't need a house to live in. AI doesn't need a shower to shower and a pool to jump in, horses to look at. It's always people that need that. And they're always going to need other people to sort of help guide them and push them in the right direction, even if you're using tools that may change the way in which that interaction happens.
Exactly. It's more about the can it create efficiencies in a technical process? Great. But I agree. It's not going to take, we all know we love humans. I love that connection. AI can't replace that. It just can't. Maybe down the road there's some weird shows about it, but
if AI doesn't need us anymore, then we'll just all move to Mars and we'll start again.
Right.
So,
exactly.
It's got to do something. So, okay. So how do we contact you if anybody wants to contact you?
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody's on your website. The website's MadisonTaylorDesign.com.
Yep, exactly. And then we've got our phone number there. So 416-477-3414. So if you call that number, you're most likely going to get Becky. Like I said, she's like a warm, sunny glow when you call the office. She's wonderful to talk to. And just reach out, ask questions. I'm all about adding value to people. So if you're not even sure and you're, maybe you think you're too early and you just need to talk to someone, I've provided so much advice over the years to people who maybe didn't even hire us because I sent them on a completely different path. Maybe they didn't need us. And so it's not about me winning every call that comes in. It's about adding value to the individual and how can I help people, in their...
I noticed as a business owner, in the long run, you're better off to just let people tell you what they want and direct them appropriately, and you'll win. If you're good at what you do and what you do is in demand, you'll win anyway. So why misdirect people? It's not gonna help you in the end. So direct people where they want to go.
For sure. Yeah, and we've got a great referral program too. So even if it isn't us and we need to connect you with somebody else, or give you a real estate agent, or give you a master planner or something, we have so many great partnerships as well that if we can't help, we're happy to point you in the right direction.
Yeah, people that are familiar.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for doing this with us.
It was awesome.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I'll just say that we're happy to be shooting this at the Sandbox Center in downtown Barrie. We're focusing on fine home building, and our podcast is available on YouTube. So if you found us this time, you found us next time. We produce about an episode a week right now. And thank you very much, Madison Taylor, for being here and telling us about what you do.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.